Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get started here. It makes us so happy, me, a former admissions counselor, it makes my heart so happy that all of you are joining us today to really make sure that you are prepared for the upcoming admissions journey within your family, of course, by being here with us. We want to make it our goal to make sure that you are as prepared as possible, and we want to give you as much original content as we possibly can so that you can learn from these webinars and take something away from them. My name is Michaela. I'm lucky enough to be one of the counselors here at Moon Prep. We're going to introduce ourselves and just let you know who we are and why you should listen to us before jumping right into all of the content that we have for you today. So Candace, do you want to introduce yourself and take it away for a second?
Thank you so much, Michaela. So I'm Candace. I'm one of the essay coaches here at Moon Prep, which means I help with people's essays as they're applying. And so currently I'm a second year in the UCLA Caltech MSTP, which stands for Medical Scientist Training Program. And so what that is that I've graduated from college and I am now doing my MD and PhD at UCLA. I used to be a speech and debate coach, and my background is in infectious disease research. And now back to you, Michaela.
Perfect. And I previously I worked as a staff writer for a national magazine, also as an honors recruiter and admissions counselor for a Big Ten university. So I love to bring my unique perspective of being the one reading applications and admitting students on the other side of the screen. I like to bring all of that knowledge to you all in these webinars. And so we're just going to kind of chat today about ways that, from the admissions perspective, that we specifically want to help you build up your resumes and applications to be the best possible applicants. But first, a little bit about Moon Prep as a company. Moon Prep is made up of a team of independent college counselors who work with students virtually. So we're a fully virtual company. And we work and guide students through not only the college admissions process, but also high school. The counselors at Moon Prep serve as a guide and mentor to our students, helping younger students select the right classes for whatever kind of career path they want to go into, helping them narrow down their career interests to actually be able to choose a major once they enter college, and also finding summer opportunities, internships, experiences to really maximize their summer or even winter break or fall break plans. We partner with our students to help them build the strongest possible applicant profile so that when they are seniors and they're applying to colleges, they have the best chance of acceptances at all of their top colleges. And then, of course, with our seniors or rising seniors, since juniors in the summer right now are hard at work on all of their college applications, we're helping them really navigate all of the colleges on their college list. So nothing is missed. We're right now in the middle of helping students brainstorm the perfect college essays to really showcase who they are as people based on the hundreds of effective essays that we've seen from our seats on the admissions side of the world, or applying to top medical schools and universities like Candace. And together as a team, we work with each student on a one-on-one capacity. And we're also not following a typical Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 schedule. We're working nights, weekends, and in every time zone imaginable so that we are available when it's convenient for the student to meet. Essentially, we exist to fill every gap that might arise from a busy high school guidance counselor who might not have time to help with every single one of the essays on a student's college list. And we're also doing things that they don't do, like proofreading students' essays on a Saturday night or hopping on a Zoom call to help a student submit an application at 10 p.m. That's where we come in. Our company is really unique because not only are we collaborative, we meet regularly to share advice about our students. So when you work with one of us, you work with all of us, but we also hire an incredibly diverse, interesting group of counselors. Even just between Candace and I, we have such a wide breadth of experience, you know, me from coming from an admissions world, her from getting into some of the top, you know, colleges in the country, as well as medical schools, and just having incredible experience. And we bring all of that collective knowledge to benefit our students. So let's jump right in. We wanted to talk about, number one, some big changes that has kind of happened in the past year or two, because if you pick up an article from a couple years ago or a book from the library, you're going to see some different knowledge and information out there because things have been changing rapidly. So one of the biggest changes is that the SAT dropped subject tests. And one of the official reasons that the College Board, that's the company that puts on the SAT and also AP tests, one of the reasons why they dropped the subject test was to reduce the demands on the students, because students, as you know, you're out there taking AP classes, building your resume, studying for the SAT, and the SAT subject tests were just one more piece of that pie. Basically, by eliminating the SAT subject test, it meant students don't need to worry about preparing for yet another exam. The College Board also said that with the rise of popularity of the advanced placement AP exams, they will replace, you know, the SAT subject tests, which were becoming less popular. You know, in previous admission cycles, schools like MIT required at least 2 subject tests. However, now all universities have dropped this requirement in an attempt to make admissions more accessible to people who didn't have access to studying for those subject tests. This allows you as a student to focus more on your actual classes, especially APs and preparing for the AP exams, rather than kind of splitting your focus and trying to study for the SAT subject test. Schools will likely emphasize, or colleges will likely emphasize AP exams more heavily. And one thing as well to know is that a lot of colleges are going to a test optional route. There's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of information out there about test optional admissions. And so it's really hard to navigate, should you take the SAT or ACT or not? And what I'll say is that in most cases, going test optional, if a school that you are interested in is going test optional, especially, or even test blind, that's even better, that is a perfectly fine route to go, but you should be aware of kind of the limitations there. Just something to think about when you're building your college list is that even if the college itself has gone test optional, if you were applying to a specialized honors program or a specialized program like a BSMD, a direct medical program, some of those programs might not be test optional. So the school might be, but not necessarily the actual, you know, specialized program within the school, as well as some of the merit scholarships and other financial aid options. Those might require a test score. So you might apply to a college without a test score and maybe be facing less financial aid or merit aid because of not taking the test. So that's just something to be aware of. It's not something that's a blanket statement for all colleges. It's just something to be aware of and to do your research on when you are building your college list. And also it's important to know that, you know, tests and grades are only one part of the college admissions process. As well as one thing to keep in mind as well is that over the past couple of years, we've seen a great increase in applications. So it's just more competitive out there. College admissions is just more competitive these days. Overall, I saw a recent article, it just came out in March. I'm blanking on who it was by. I think it was US News, but there was a report of an increase of 25% or more in the top tier colleges. So the top 50 colleges saw an increase of 25% in applications or more. So it's just a little bit more of a difficult world out there navigating college admissions. But again, building the right resume or activities list, since your resume basically equates to the activities list on your on the college applications. It's just important to build that up all the more. And students should still focus on building a strong activities list built on hands-on and learning experiences to help showcase their interest and talent in a particular field. And that is what we are here to talk about today. So thank you all for joining us. So first of all, this is a really great slide about a lot of students wonder about being well-rounded. Do I need to do sports? What if I need to have, what if I have work or family obligations? These are very, very, very important things to know about. So, sorry, I'm just adjusting my audio is on my phone right now. So if you pick up a book, an admissions advice book from the library from 5 years ago, you're going to see advice on basically like how your resume should have one sport, a part-time job, and maybe 2 or 3 extracurriculars. And that is totally fine for college admissions. That was the advice for so long. But gone are the days of those traditional college admissions. The college admissions process is just simply changing really, really fast. So it's really important to especially, sorry, I'm just inviting someone to, and I just got a message about someone needing to be invited to, there we go.
Michaela, we can still see your screen right now.
Oh, very big. I know, I'm just trying to send this really quickly. There we go, beautiful. Students are just, more involved than ever. And again, we want to be competitive with the other students that are applying. And the high school generation too is incredibly conscious of world issues and often have environmental activities on their resumes. So in the past, students have gone into things like sports right on this page because guidance counselors and teachers have shared that colleges will like to see this on their resume. And this slide is just here to exist to tell you that you don't need to do any one thing to get into college. You don't have to do sports or cheerleading, or you don't have to do, debate or drama to get into college anymore, but you do have to do something. So a part-time job or family obligations is absolutely fine, but it can't be the only thing that's on your resume. Sports is fantastic to add to your resume, but make sure it's not the only thing. Just diversify your interests and make sure you are getting involved and not just doing one thing anymore. And that's, again, we're here to give you a ton of examples of what to add to your list. So on this slide, we're really talking about what type of activities are best. And truthfully, there really is no one answer to this. So what we always tell our students that join Moon Prep is to identify their interests, even if it's let's just pretend that you have an interest in kind of just like world policies, and just you're really up to date on maybe like global issues and the news, and you want to get involved in Model UN. That's fantastic. We want you to explore interests that you're into. If you watch the news all the time, if you're always kind of on top of what's going on in the world, like Model UN would be a fantastic thing to get into. But then we tell our students to make sure that we're taking things to the next level. So can you start a mentorship, kind of a mentorship where you are guiding new students who are interested in going into Model UN? Can you write a guidebook or even publish an online book about some, how to get into Model UN, or maybe a glossary of terms of people who are interested in Model UN? How do you take something to the next level on your resume? Those are the activities that will stand out if you try to kind of double up, almost like have an umbrella of one thing and try to do a couple things underneath the umbrella of one activity. And in this day and age, virtual activities are absolutely great. This can be online shadowing, which I'm sure Candace is going to talk about in a little bit, but online shadowing, there are virtual internships. There are so many things virtually these days that you can get involved in. You can also create your own thing. So one example is, if you are really striking out on virtual activities to join, one thing that you can do is look around to some of the smaller nonprofits around you and see if any of them have kind of an outdated website. If you're someone who's kind of, computer savvy, you can offer to build them a new website. And then you have something great on your resume that you built a local nonprofit, a new website, and it probably didn't take that much time on your hands, but you've done something good in this world, and you have something also for your resume. So there isn't one type of activities that is best, but we do recommend that our students identify their interests early, and also maybe try to do something in the field of maybe their career interests too, because that can never hurt.
Perfect. Thank you so much for covering that, Michaela. So a question that we get a lot is, how many activities should I do? Now, it's always great to have varied interests. It's always good to be pursuing the things that you really enjoy doing. But at the end of the day, you really only have so much time. And the reality is that you only have 10 spaces on your resume for the Common App. So you really have to prioritize and figure out which activities you really enjoy, which ones do you see yourself growing in and becoming more involved in. This is tied into the other question, which is, do I need to be a leader in every club? And my answer is no, right? You don't have to be a leader in every club. In fact, that's probably not great, because now you're spreading yourself too thin, and it really brings into question, it begs the question of how much time are you really putting into each of these things. So one thing that is really important is progression. This is going to be true for anything from grades to activities to anything else that you do, is that all of the institutions want to see is that you are committed to some kind of activity or goal or field of study, and that you're really pursuing it to a point where you can kind of upgrade or go up a level, or make it more intense, or explore it further and take it to a more advanced level. So perhaps that's, going from writing a research article to working in the lab, right? Or maybe it could be as easy as, going as from like a regular club member, and then kind of becoming a committee leader the next year, and then a treasurer, and then kind of showing that kind of progression. That happens the same thing with grades, right? If you have lower grades when you first start out and you start to improve them, then it's a lot easier for you to make that argument that you have made improvements and you are capable of making improvements such to meet whatever challenges you have to face. And so just keep in mind that those 10 resume spaces, that's what limits you most of all when you're talking about college. And sometimes it'll feel like it's not enough. Sometimes it's going to feel like, oh my God, I don't have enough space to put everything that I do. And so really it involves a lot of introspection, and especially as you're deciding which activities to do, see if it's something that you can envision yourself being in long term down the line, and if you're really willing to commit that amount of time to that particular activity. Next slide.
That was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And so exactly what Candace was talking about was showing that progression, that upwards trend with your activities is where you should be focusing your time and effort. Not necessarily adding more things all the time, but showing kind of progression within your current activities or showing a progression of your interests. That's exactly where we should be doing what we should be doing. So if we are feeling like we have a little bit of a blank resume, which is what, students come to Moon Prep all the time feeling like, we want to kind of cover that a little bit too. This can be, this new virtual world that we live in can absolutely be the time to explore ways to add activities to your resume that can be virtual or done from your home. This is the time to kind of think outside the box. So again, you can 100% do things like I mentioned, building a website for a local nonprofit. That is such an easy option to do, or reaching out to local nonprofits again to see if you want to, if you can help them coordinate volunteers. You can do this virtually, or again, look into an online internship. There are platforms like Handshake and LinkedIn that could be, or you could be sending out emails to businesses that you really like what they're doing in your community. Or you can also reach out to local news stations or websites and offer to write a blog or an article from a student's perspective on classes moving online during quarantine or anything else. There's a local website for me in my area that's just literally like activities for kids. It's just a local website that a mom puts together, and she has great contributors that send in information about the best schools in the area, which schools have the best extracurriculars, and also like what to do when students are bored in the summer. Like, what do? You can find websites like this in your area and submit an article, and then you're published, and that's something great on your resume. There are so many virtual things to be done. And then if you do one of these things to add value to your local community, then reach out to your local news station and ask them to cover the story. They love highlighting good deeds done by local students. Local news stations are great. And then you have something else, a publication or a video that was done about something that you did. All of this is just adding interesting layers to your activities list and your resume without possibly taking up too many spots on your resume too. There are so many ideas like this virtually. We could just go on and on. You can start a food drive in your community by kind of contacting a local food bank to see what items that they're really lacking and specifically trying to gather those items. Even using social media to organize deliveries and things like that without ever even leaving your home. And again, just make sure that you're not the things you're adding don't just look like you're desperately filling your resume with just anything you can get your hands on, because colleges don't want cookie cutter applicants that are doing what every other student is doing. If your 5 friends are all applying to the same college and you've all done similar activities together, why would that college choose you over your 5 friends? So think outside the box and realize that colleges want unique candidates with genuine interests, and go ahead and go for those genuine interests and show how unique you are. And, you know, at the bottom here is another option. You can always self-publish a book to, you know, help newbies in whatever hobby that you love to spend your time on, kind of navigate that world. And then you have an impressive item on your resume. You've also spent time in something that you truly enjoy. And it's, again, something really interesting on your activities list or resume. So just spend some time evaluating your interests and seeing if there's any way to take anything to the next level.
Yeah, thank you. And so part of taking it to the next level is, you know, showing commitment, showing, you know, and dedication to finding new opportunities and doing things that are different. You can show that you're a well-rounded person by doing different activities that are very different. You know, that was something that I did because I was interested in the sciences, but I also loved writing and reading and speech and debate. And so I kind of pursued both. And I even tracked that into college, where I ended up doing a double major, right, in history and also in science, in biology. And so you want to be able to cultivate either a very, you know, strong interest in one thing, or, you know, if you have interest in more things, then follow that thread, right? So there's search engines like Web Shatters or the Forge that can help you look for opportunities. Like Michaela said, you could reach out to local nonprofits or reach out to local companies. You always want to reach out with this kind of telling them about your skills and what you can contribute. And sometimes it feels like you're just screaming out into the void, and it feels like it's really hard to get a response. But you have to remember that all you really need is for one person to be like, okay, sure, come in and shadow me for the day, for example. And once you get your foot in the door, it becomes really easy to develop that progression that we were talking about earlier. And I think the most important part about shadowing is really consider, as you're going for this opportunity, as you're searching for it, as you're considering it, and while you're doing it and afterwards, keep in mind what you're learning from this, what you're taking away. Try to, you know, think about it with yourself and figure out what are pertinent and tangible skills that you're taking away, so that as you're building your resume, you can really consider what traits you've learned or what qualities you've picked up, you know, or even just like what fun facts you learned throughout this process. And that'll make it a lot easier to formulate your essays later on as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, not everyone has to double major in things like Candace. She's just a genius. So
thank you for that, right, Michaela. No, absolutely. You do not need to double major in anything or cure cancer or anything like that. But, you know, I think part of it that is, you know, maybe that my scores weren't as high. And so having something that made me kind of different also helped me stand out. Now, there's no correct answer, you know, for what you should be doing. But as long as you're showing interest and it's something that you really enjoy, then you're probably going to get the most out of it. And so that segues really well into this slide where we're talking about building those activities that will end up on your resume. So if you're really interested in a subject or you just want to learn more, you can enroll in a virtual or in-person college level class. A lot of local community colleges offer classes to high school students and younger, but high school students as well, that you can take, and you can just follow that class and just learn more, and you can count it for credit or not. And those are all options that you can look into later on. But you can use that as a way to show that you've now got advanced knowledge in a very specific topic, but also that you are willing to pursue it at a higher level than was expected of you. You can also continue and maintain Other longitudinal activities such as shadowing, volunteering, research, and the same thing applies here, is that schools really want to show commitment to some kind of activity because they also know that college is hard and they want to make sure that you can really stick through it and you have that ability to pick yourself up and come up with solutions and figure things out. So having that long-term commitment is going to be really good for showing that. You can also join a summer enrichment program. Many colleges and many universities offer that. There are also outside companies that offer that. We even have one. So these are all options that you can look into to further your resume, to help you learn more about the world and have things that you can talk about with passion on your essays and on your application later on.
Awesome job. I've had a couple direct messages, so I want to cover a couple questions that have been sent in. If you have more questions or want some opinions over, extracurriculars on your resume, please continue to send those in. You can either respond to everyone or direct message Candace or I, and we can make sure we're answering those questions live for you. So one person asked, if you are the president of multiple clubs, does it look unbelievable to admissions counselors? Not at all. It's perfectly fine to pursue leadership over kind of like multiple interests. It's absolutely something that it makes sense. Like for me, I grew up with horses. I also grew up loving to write. So it would have been very conceivable for me to be the president of both, a 4-H club or something like that and a journalism club, because those two interests were super high for me. So it is perfectly fine to have leadership in multiple clubs. You just don't have to go after leadership in every single thing that you do. It's okay to casually like something. It can be on your resume if you're a member just as much as if you're the president. But no, it doesn't look unbelievable to admissions counselors if you have leadership in multiple clubs or roles. It just shows that you are ambitious, but you don't have to be ambitious in everything that you do. So you are absolutely fine, and thank you for the question.
And I think most importantly is that you show good time management. So that doesn't always have to be an activity. Sometimes it involves responsibilities at home. Sometimes that involves other things that are happening in your life. And so as long as you're showing that you're capable of holding up your responsibilities that you commit to, and that you have a dedication to the things that you're interested in, that's most important. And Michaela, we had a question. Do AP courses count as college level classes?
A very good question. So first of all, your exam scores will definitely, again, like I was mentioning in the very beginning, it has taken kind of priority in place of the SAT subject test. So AP exams are very important on kind of getting you into college and showing that you are capable of tackling college rigor. But also, I believe it depends a little bit on the college and what they determine for, what's the word? Oh, what is the word? Transferology, like course requirements.
Right.
Because
so it's the way that, sorry, Michaela, just really quickly, the way that it worked for me. So for most colleges and universities, AP will not count as a class in and of itself. So my point is, if you take the class and you don't take the exam, that doesn't convert to anything in terms of college credit. If you take the exam and pass a certain score, then oftentimes they'll give you credit. But depending on your major, that may not apply as like a replacement for classes that you have to take. But oftentimes it does count for credit. At other colleges and universities, they may allow you to replace that course with your AP exam score, but it really, at the end of the day, depends on the institution that you're attending. And so it often requires a lot of like investigative work to kind of figure out which can transfer. If you end up taking any courses at a community college and you want to go to a state school, so that's true for a lot of different programs, you can look it up in a website called Access. And that'll help you kind of figure out how your courses translate. But the best and most accurate way is always going to be looking at the institution's website.
100%. And I was trying to, like, in my brain, I can see behind my eyelids, I can see how it looked on our screens at the college. But basically, they will be able to line up the content that was covered in your class with the content that it would overlap with the college course that you're going for credit for. And there were certain like benchmarks, and so like they would decide whether or not it counted or not, basically. But in most cases, you know, AP exams are great. AP exams and classes are great for taking care of prerequisites for classes for your major. Like my husband went through engineering college, and to get into the engineering class, he had to take there were prerequisites that he should have taken in high school, but he did not have AP classes. He did not have advanced classes at all at the school that he went to. And so he was like, what was it called? Preliminarily accepted because he hadn't taken the prerequisite classes in high school. And that's, again, like what AP classes can cover easily. Anything to add about that, Candace?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more on summer enrichment programs as well.
No, we'll kind of move on to a little bit more, like the summer programs. We have some more questions, but we will get to them in just a second. So we're going to tackle a couple more slides, come back to some questions, and so on and so forth. So again, summer programs are a fantastic way to continue to build your resume. So this is for underclassmen, but also a lot of these programs are also available in the fall. So summer enrichment programs or research programs, there's so many programs available in science, STEM, medical, scientific research, leadership. And again, for those not pursuing a degree in science, there are coding and business and architecture. There's so many programs out there also available through the fall or even winter break. If you have schools that are due in January, you can still be completing a lot of things, since I know, of course, the summer is almost over. But and there's still programs out there starting, you know, this week, next week. There are still late summer programs as well. But, you know, these pre-college programs really ease the transition to college while obviously making a positive impression to admissions officials, simply because you're showing that you're being ambitious and that you're exploring the field before you're entering it. And also, there's a lot of, you know, positives to these programs as well. There's the winter programs at UMass Amherst, for instance, all award college credit. And there are so many programs, just off the top of my head, I know there's programs in like vet tech and so many different science and like music technology. You can get college credit while still building your resume, even over winter break before January applications. So just make sure that if you feel like your resume is a little bit lacking at this point and you're applying to colleges either this fall or next fall if you're younger, just make sure that you are searching. There's virtual programs and in-person programs that are still happening now, as well as fall break, and winter break. And you can add something to your resume that's not too late. When you are looking at these programs, though, just make sure that you are focusing on outcomes. So looking at programs that have concrete outcomes. Will you be published in, a journal for them? Is there college credit? Do you have a poster presentation? Do you have a concrete, object at the end? I recommend my students kind of stay away from the programs that just have students explore a field or something and not actually gain industry experience by shadowing or an internship or have any kind of like outcome at the end. And that is just kind of my own preference for what I share with my students. We have a couple questions that were sent to me also direct message. How do you be unique to colleges when you maybe have a twin who did the same extracurriculars, leadership, and also very similar test scores?
I would add really quickly that this also applies to people that you're friends with or are in very similar activities with. But go ahead, Michaela.
So exactly, this is the time to make sure that you are differentiating yourself. Number one, you can do that by having kind of wildly different personal statements for the essay. So, find out what your twin is writing about and really, make sure that you are writing about something different. Don't have the same even style as their essay. Make sure that you are setting yourself apart using the only part of your application that really kind of showcases your personality, show that you have different personalities. And then you should both I would recommend both of you taking at least one item in the remaining of the summer, doing one item on your resume that is different from each other. So one of you do a food bank volunteer drive. The other person volunteer at a nursing home. Just do something that sets you apart slightly. You don't have to completely rework your entire resume. It's perfectly okay to enjoy your family and twin or even your friends, but do take the time to do one item to set yourself apart. You don't need to do I need to do more than them, but just do something different than them. Candace, do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I actually got the same question too. And one of the things that I tried to talk about is also focus on things that you specifically did. And those are things that no one else is going to be able to talk about. So what are the unique things or what unique qualities or traits that you gain from that experience? Those are all good things to talk about.
Exactly. And so if you did do similar things on your resumes, if you did the same projects or internships, work experiences, you can even talk about those same, events, but come at it from different angles. One of you talk about it in a day in the life of your job experience, while the other person talks about how it shaped them as a person. Just come at it from different angles even. Just do something to set yourself apart. And if you need a lot of help with that, that's where kind of, maybe approaching us for help with writing the essay, doing a package of hours to help with essays, we can help with that because we want to help you set yourself apart. We had someone else ask, what's a good place to find information on summer winter enrichment programs? Truthfully, Google will just be your friend here. I ran across the UMass Amherst ones from just literally Googling winter break, I think research programs is because a student I was helping search really wanted something with research, and they do have research intensives in psychology, and that is just something that I was just Googling, and it was probably on the third page of Google or something. But just honestly, there's really no perfect list out there unless, Candace, you randomly know of one. So Google will just be your friend.
No, I don't have a list, but also these programs change from year to year, so there's never going to be a consistent list either, and often the requirements change or parts of their program curriculum change. So like Michaela said, Google's going to be your best friend, and so staying with that and keep looking. Even things probably change day to day, sometimes applications open, so that's always something to look at whenever you're searching up activities on Google. Yeah, okay, so perfect. Independent research projects. So one of the things that you can get involved in is research. And I know that this person in this photo looks like they're wearing lab gear, and they probably do research in the lab, but it doesn't always have to be in a lab. Lots of research go around. There are polls on public opinion studies. There are people that do psychology experiments, and that's also a lab. There are obviously also basic scientists that do bench work with pipettes and, Erlenmeyer flasks. There's all different kinds of research. So if you find interest in asking questions and answering those questions, then I would look into research and just find a topic that you're interested in and try to email people. There'll be a lot of cold emailing, but if you also attach a resume, talk about what are some of the skills that you have and what things you have done, then that really helps. Once you start doing that kind of research, it'll help you get published. Getting published means getting a journal to accept your article, and they will article, and by article I use the term of art, which is whatever you write up as part of what you're going to publish. And so the journal has to take they get all kinds of submissions, and they take a look at it and they say, is this something that I would publish in my journal? And we'll see that there's a couple different types of journals as well. And if they accept it, they'll edit it with you, and then they'll put it out, and it'll be public information and public knowledge. But it also means that your work meets a certain quality level of creativity, intuition, knowledge, troubleshooting, all the different parts of research. And so you can get recognized as a young emerging scientist. And that also really helps in applications because you're published in a scientific journal, and it helps to highlight all the different ways you explore your interests and how you go through it so that you learn it at a more advanced level. So the way that you get started is think about all the things that interest you. Think about the careers that stem from the things that interest you. So to start a document, and it says document here because no one writes it on pen and paper anymore, but to start a document and think about potential research topics that are related to your interest. If you aren't really sure, searching up current research is a great way to get started, to kind of dip your toes in the pool and figure out what else is going on in this field of study right now. We'll also list some resources later on that you can use to help you find all this current research. You can look into your local university or another university's program and look at their lab websites. A lot of professors have labs, and so you can look into their websites, look into the recent publications to see what kind of work they're working on, and even reach out to the lab. You can also reach out to the faculty members that are maybe not part of a lab, but just teach courses at the university or college or whatever institution as well. And by improving your resume, and make sure you include all your activities and resume and experiences on your resume, then you can provide them with the most up-to-date information about you. But it also allows you to maybe add that activity or research project to your own application because it gives you a better shot at getting that foot in the door, as I was saying. One resource that I do want to mention is Pubmed. And Michaela, we can go to the next slide.
Yeah. Oops. All right.
Perfect. So Pubmed is a great tool for finding up-to-date research on a lot of different subjects. All peer-reviewed journals and even some non-peer-reviewed journals have their articles on here. They even have ways or different journal websites and journal websites where you can submit a paper that has not yet been peer reviewed, and that will also show up on PubMed. So you can see all the most cutting edge research, even what hasn't been published yet, but obviously take that with a grain of salt. PubMed Central has more research articles, and they're all offered without a paywall. And what that means is you can access it for free, unlike some resources that may ask you to pay to access things. Also, a fun pro tip is that if you are ever stuck behind a paywall, try to send that author an email. Most of them don't get very many profits off of the paywall. And so they're more than happy to share their research for you because it's genuinely about sharing knowledge. Google Scholar is a great way to find primary literature on basically everything under the sun because that's Google. And so the great thing about Google Scholar is that it filters so that you get sources that are verified, things that have been cited. It gives you information on how many times an article was cited and in which articles. It can also give you other information like the impact score of the article, or you can filter by resource and all those different things. You also have the directory of open access journals, and that's just a way to find journals that are for free and for everyone, and you can find those in a number of different subjects as well. The Public Library of Science, it just has peer-reviewed articles for free. And so these are all different places that you can start looking into different things that you might be interested in learning more about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You are a wealth of knowledge as always. And
yeah. And this is just following up on what I was saying earlier, which is that there's so many topics that are covered by every journal. So everything that you can think of probably will be accepted at some journals. So these are all the topics that are included, and we probably have a bajillion more that we haven't included. So check to see what the journal has published. They often have an about section that'll let you know what topics they're covered. And always just check with the journal if at the end of the day you're still confused, because they will most definitely tell you.
And we're going to leave this slide up since it doesn't really necessarily need a lot of explanations, but obviously if you want some ideas, you could screenshot this and we can answer a couple more questions. So back a little bit higher, Lauren asked, in terms of admissions, do colleges care what your AP exam score was, or do they only care about the class grade listed on the transcript? That's a great question. So, typically, like in Moon Prep, we typically have students include that AP exam if it is a 4 or a 5, sometimes a 3, but we definitely want to show that you have, that your A in the class or your grade in the class is consistent with your AP score. So the colleges do care about what the AP exam was. It might look odd to them if you kind of bomb the AP exam, but your grade is an A. And so it's just another way to show consistency. It's another way to show that, you're getting 5s across the board and your, SAT is over a 1500. It all just kind of like matches and shows that you're not just a great test taker in one area, you just kind of like have that kind of knowledge. And then Lisa asked the group as well, should summer activities be focused on the field I'm interested in? Is it disadvantageous not knowing what I want to major in? So that's a great question. Not necessarily. It's perfectly okay to have summer activities or things on your resume that are varied and diverse. Like you want to show that, like your parents aren't forcing you to go into business, like you've explored some other areas and things like that. So it's perfectly okay to have a diverse resume. I would recommend kind of developing a theme across your resume. So don't have your resume being like all over the place. Show that you have kind of really confirmed your interest in something. But it is perfectly fine to not know what you want to major in. I mean, you are in high school. It is perfectly okay to truthfully just be exploring. You don't have to have everything figured out. In fact, most people change their majors once or twice. Nobody expects you to have it completely figured out. And that same goes for your resume.
And in fact, I changed my major 12 times. So you really don't have to have anything figured out, but it is important to show who you are and what you would contribute if you were to be at that institution.
Yeah, 100%. Are there any questions you want to tackle, Candace?
I wanted your opinion on this, Michaela. So
yeah,
so we have two questions that kind of talk about in senior year or as you're applying, taking a break from a lot of the activities or positions that you are involved with, or, you know, maybe not trying as hard in your classes and your grades dropping a little bit. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is a great question. So first of all, if you are exploring majors or truthfully starting essays and wondering how to set yourself apart, we have resources specifically designed for all of those. We have resources about how to build a college list, how to start the essay, how to brainstorm ideas for the essay to stand apart. So I just want to leave this up here. I'll put the link to the chat in the chat as well, simply to let you know that you can click this and get access to all of our free resources right there. So back to the question though, and I'll put this slide up as well, just letting you know if you do want individual help, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to work with you and help with those essays and give you personalized advice. So feel free to reach out and schedule a free consultation with us on, like, just basically, oh, I kind of made, sorry, I'll divide those up. Sorry, everyone. It still did it. Okay. Oopsies. There we go. If you click the contact link that I added in the bottom there, it will allow you just to schedule with me on the calendar, so you can do that too. But we would love to give you individualized advice on these things and spend more time. And we offer a free consultation call to explain our services. But we'll answer these last couple questions, and then we will let everybody get on with their evening, and we appreciate your time with us. But in my senior year of high school, I decided to take a break from many of the clubs I was involved in. Will this impact my application negatively? Incredibly good question. Truthfully, a lot of clubs are designed to showcase leadership in their junior year so that seniors can kind of pass the torch to the next group of juniors. So it is perfectly okay to take a little bit of a back seat in your senior year, especially if you have done a lot of leadership, you've shown, academic challenges and ambition, in the years prior. A lot of students do take a little bit of a backseat. I would not halt everything completely because, and this is also goes for the next question of if it's okay to not try as hard on grades this year and get B's while focusing on essays, SAT, and scholarships. This is something to know for both of those questions. If you are waitlisted anywhere or the acceptance date is a little bit later, a lot of colleges will ask you to send in a letter of continued interest, which basically asks you to update them on what you've been doing. So if you have stopped everything on your resume, which a lot of students do, you have nothing to talk about in that letter. And that means you have a very low chance of getting off of that wait list. So I recommend all of my students to continue building their resume in at least one or two major areas in addition to maintaining their grades, because they will have to send in mid-year reports sometimes over that first semester, the fall semester, and as well as an update on what they've been up to. And if all you've been doing is studying for the SAT and writing college essays, your letter of continued interest isn't going to be very long. So I highly recommend continuing to build your resume. Candace, anything to add there?
So nothing to add there. But we have another question that says, like, if we have an essay that's been edited a lot by other people, is it going to be concerning if it, doesn't necessarily sound like a student wrote it?
That's a great question. It's something that is difficult to answer because, like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head last year, I, for one, had 3 or 4 students who their first draft of an essay they would send to me sounded better than most things you would see published in a book these days. Like, they just, after working with me out over just a couple instances of brainstorming and outlining an essay, they just kind of got it, like they just were good at this. And they could instantly be like, if I said, all right, this essay we've got to write about leadership, they had an idea for an opening. It was well written. It was just fantastic right from the start. And so for a lot of students, they write like that. So we at Moon Prep make sure that we prioritize maintaining a student's individual voice while making sure that we enhance different, areas, obviously, to make sure that they are presenting the best versions of themselves, that they're not, talking about anything they shouldn't be, but we are maintaining their kind of original voice. And so I think that's very important, as well as showing consistency across the board. So if your, personal statement sounds wildly different than, your why did you choose this major essay, that will be a red flag. But a lot of students are just very good writers. So I would make sure that to be very careful that your essay isn't edited to death, but also because it needs to maintain your individual voice, but also you can submit a good essay and still sound like a student. And that's something that we make sure our students, their original voice is being shown, as well as the fact that it's a good essay. And I think that's just the most important thing. But yeah, I think that an essay, if it has, like a lot of British American words and things like that, like it really does have a red flag. And it's something that we are obviously watching out for too. Like, does this actually look like something a student would write? Because that's important. We don't want your parents writing the essay, especially. So, well, that's kind of all the time we have for questions and everything. We want to thank you so much for spending your Thursday night with us. I know in some time zones it's pretty late, and we just thank you so much for spending your time with us. We would really love if you kind of walked away from this experience and you learned something. We would love to know about it. So if we know your time is valuable and everything like that, we want to make sure that we hear from you too. If you had a great experience, we want to know about it. If you felt like there were things that we could improve upon, we want to know about that too. You're welcome to email us. Our email is up higher in the chat. And if you have an idea for a topic we should cover, we would love to hear your opinions. But we want to thank you for spending your evening with us, and we hope to hear from you soon about a free consultation.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll hear from you soon.
Bye-bye.